I've wanted to make this recording for a while now. Just this past October, uh, let me begin. I spent most of my life with complex PTSD due to childhood trauma and witnessing a lot of violence growing up and just various things. I'm a I'm a Gen X era person. I'm going to keep my as much as possible, keep my name anonymous because the people I'm going to be talking about right now are still alive. And although they did some harm to me in my life, I still care for them. And most of all, through my recovery, I forgive them. And that's an important thing that you want to do. You do not need to have them in your life or subject yourself to their toxicity, but forgiveness is important. Um, anyway, I'm gonna read a testimony that I gave 1 year after I spent a lot of time masking my complex PTSD with marijuana use primarily. This is a speech where I got the best use. I did go into a treatment program back in early 2020 or late 2020, but relapsed again. It was through a program called CR where I got my best results because it was a long-term process, and I did do their step study program, and that helped me resolve a lot of issues and really talk them out over probably a 9-month period between other gentlemen with other various issues. But with their support and being able to verbalize this, I was able to use this. If you've never heard us Celebrate Recovery, I suggest you do it. It is a faith-based program, but for me, in my opinion, you can't do this without Jesus in your life. So, but that's me. Anyway, like I said, I'm gonna keep this anonymous as much as possible, but I'm gonna read my testimony that I gave 1 year after uh, being sober and not masking my issues with marijuana. I'm now at just past the 3 year mark. I'm not so much involved with Celebrate Recovery right now, mostly due to the fact is I'm tired of rehashing old stuff, although I probably will go back from time to time. But I need to look forward to building a future and living a life, not living in the rearview mirror. But anyway, I'm going to read this. I've got it written out here, so bear with me. I spent most of my life trying to escape my here and now. I constantly looked in the rearview mirror, running from what was behind me and looking forward through the window, always saying to myself that only if I could get that or moving there or achieving that, everything would be better. So it was always never being in the moment. It was always either if I obtain this, if I do this or something else, or if only this, that I could obtain happiness. And I really still struggle with that now. But anyway, I'll continue. Mostly it's trying to be happy and content with where you're at and living the best life you can. Anything except where I was currently. I never stopped to live the here and now, like I just said. As a child, due to early trauma and times of severe distress, I learned a self-preservation coping technique of disassociation. I literally escaped my own body and presence by going internally into a land or world far away inside my own head. By the time I was a junior in high school, I learned I could do this at will by smoking marijuana. Using pot mimicked the feeling, at least for a short duration. Disassociation helped me escape from my problems. Up to about a year ago, I hated who I was, and I never even contemplated the idea I deserved to be happy or complete. In my darkest times and hauntings of the past, I spent my time in a haze of marijuana smoke at every possible moment. In 2020, all of this came closing in on me. I began to suffer extreme panic attacks. I blacked out and nearly drove off the cliff on Highway 260 on the Mogollon Rim in Arizona. I knew it was time for help. My life was spinning out of control, and after spending a year trying to figure stuff out on my own, a friend of mine suggested I join him in a step study through Celebrate Recovery. I said I would do it. I committed to doing it, and then I asked him how long the study was, and he said it was probably about 9 months. I have a hard time with commitment, so I kind of gasped at having given my word, but I did give him my word I would do it, and I signed up with him. This was in 2020, probably early September of 2020. My mother grew up in a lower middle class family, while my dad grew up in a violently traumatized family, spending his childhood in and out of reform schools due to abuse. My parents' marriage was a turbulent one, and didn't last very long. One of the earliest memories I have of their marriage is my mom crying, bleeding from the ears, and bruises on her face. One night, they had a terrible all-night fight. After my father fell asleep, my mother gathered me and my infant sister up, and we escaped in the middle of the night with only the clothes on our backs. We settled in with my grandparents for a couple of years, which seemed like a safe environment at the time. But unknown to my mother, I was being molested by one of her younger siblings over the course of the year. This I suppressed for many years, until recently. We eventually settled into our own home, where my sister and I spent much of our time alone. My mo- we were the epitome of latchkey kids. My mother worked long and late hours and did the best she could, but she was overworked and eventually got burned out. After a few years, my father occasionally began to filter back into our lives, and during the summers, my mom, knowingly, would send us back into a battlefield of violence because she needed relief from being a single parent. My sister and I spent our summers learning to walk on eggshells and became invisible, while my father violently brutalized whichever wife he happened to be married to at the time. These images I can never blot out of my mind and haunt me to this very day. Carrying this around my entire life was extremely difficult and had damaging effects on my self-worth and who I was as a person. I always believed in God as a kid, but never felt the peace that I read about in the Bible. In 2008, I managed to get sober and dive into the Bible. I learned a lot and began to build a relationship with Jesus Christ. I even had a true God moment that changed my life, so I thought. After 10 years of sobriety and seeking God, it was just one stressful crisis to undo everything. One day, my father was visiting, and he got in an argument with my wife. He stood up and squared off like he was going to hit her. Even though I got between them, I felt like a 5-year-old boy again. All the memories of trauma and violence came flooding back. I thought I was on firm rock, but to my astonishment, it took only a few good blows to my life to knock all that I was standing on to the ground. Again, see Luke 6:46 through 49 about building a rock on Jesus Christ. Having never really unpacked any of the trauma of my past, all the baggage I carried was still in there deep inside of me, even though I thought I was over it. I now was at my lowest point. My body was now in constant feelings of fight or flight, and panic attacks due to complex PTSD. Today, it is now a different story for the most part. When I started the step study, I could hardly share without crying or breaking down. I never wanted to smile or laugh. I never thought I would receive or even deserve love or care from anyone. Yet today I can say I feel this with my brothers in my step study and with my family. I worked the steps with my sponsor, the brothers in my step study, and of course, Jesus. It enabled me to regain the feeling of joy, love, and self-worth. Working the steps, and especially the inventory, enabled me to unpack all the demons of my past. The most difficult part was uh, amends, because I realized that even when we are victims, there are some things that may contribute to that we contribute to those situations in negative ways. A real healing process is owning and cleaning our part of our messy lives. Healing in Jesus Christ. We need to lay it all at Jesus' feet and admit that we are powerless with surrendering all we are to Him. Can I end this talk with some final success story and tie it in a nice bow? No, not at all. I still struggle a lot of the times, but now I have tools to support my sponsor and the support of my sponsor, my step study and brothers, and my wife, to recognize when I'm going off the rails. These days, it takes only a small amount of time to recognize when things are going wrong to get back on track. It doesn't take days, weeks, or even years or self-destructive patterns that like it did in the past. I catch myself smiling sometimes, even in laughing, when before that never happened much. As I continue to when I let go of my past, it enables me to surrender to Jesus, and I become less of who I was and more of Him and me. So, what I want to say to the newcomer, or somebody seeking recovery, there is change. Life has again, I wrote this about 2 years ago. Um, I still struggle right now. I'm currently teaching, or I'm attempting to get a teaching job. I'm realizing that, in another talk I'll talk about it is later, is that trying to restart a career without these bedrocks that I put down, man, I would be a mess, because ageism is real. Um, Getting employed by somebody else at 57, 58 years old is not an easy task, and ageism is real. Uh, yes, working with Celebrate Recovery, I wholeheartedly suggest it with people to try it, to give it a shot, even if you're wondering about your faith um, in Christ, or if that's even you, or working with, uh, man, it was a game changer for me. It's given me, even with the problems that I still face in life, are things totally easy and better? No, never. I constantly face challenges and disappointments and arguments and family situation issues. But man, I've got the tools to deal with those things. So um, I can manage. So anybody who's considering recovery through Celebrate Recovery, you may feel like life is hopeless and so forth, but you know, God does put us through all these paths for a reason. They're learning experiences, and you wonder, like, well, I'm old now, or getting old, or I'm young, whatever. No matter what age you are, it's like, when is the learning experience in the golden age supposed to happen? Well, life is a continual school for sure, and we will never be finished learning until the day we join our God. So I will end with two scriptures. Proverbs 16:9 says, "A man's heart can plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." You may think um, you're guiding your way, but God is walking you through this walk for a reason and for learning experience. Everything you've been through has a purpose in God's ultimate plan. And true healing comes when you let go, surrender everything you are to Jesus Christ, and work the steps. Um, and again, I recommend the step study. There's a place in you for God's kingdom. Also, I'll end this with a personal invitation with Jesus Christ. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew 11:28 through 30.